Hey everybody, J Average Vintage Collector here with Rusty Vintage Cards. We really hope that everyone has a fun time tonight. We've got a brand new series that we're starting. It is called Going Deep. I know that's a funny name. It's not what it really means, but really the basis of this show is that we're going to do a deep dive with a particular sports baseball team every episode. And kind of talk about a history and bring on a guest who's a big fan of those teams and have that person talk about maybe some of their experiences, why they're a fan, show some cards or memorabilia or tell some stories, whatever they want to do. It's kind of in their, the balls in their playing field. They can do whatever they want with it. So tonight, first episode, inaugural episode, we're going to feature the Houston Astros. And we have a very special guest on. So, Rusty, go ahead and you can introduce our guest.
Yeah, Jay, thanks. Happy to be on here. Excited to get this thing going. We've been talking about it for a couple of months. So I am excited to introduce our first guest. And yeah, if you want to bring him on, you guys are probably going to be familiar with him. It is Brent Richards. Brent,
What's
welcome.
up, guys?
What's up, Brent?
Glad to have you.
Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, you too.
You got a nice little setup behind you.
Yeah, man, we changed it up a little bit for this. So I'm just honored to be on the inaugural episode with you guys. A couple guys with vintage literally in their name and a guy that's not super vintage. So I'm honored.
Well, so we were discussing that, and I think that may be fitting for the Astros because it's not like they've been around since 1920.
Exactly. Right. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, and even when they did start up, they didn't really have those superstar type players that were making headlines. It took them a little while to get going. So
yeah, they had like Aspromani and guys like that back in the day, and that was about it. Mm-hmm. Larry Durker came along, but yeah, it was 40 years before we did anything. So
you're right, absolutely right.
Well, so, Brent, we're happy to have you, Jay. If you want to bring up that image. We'll do a little bit of a deep dive on the Astros history first.
There we go.
All right. So the Astros franchise began in 1962 as an expansion team for the National League along with the New York Mets. They changed their name to the Astros in 1965 to coincide with the NASA presence in Houston. Also in 1965, that's when they began playing in the Astrodome. And they were the first MLB team to play in a fully enclosed, air-conditioned dome stadium. They have 5 World Series appearances, 2006, 2017, 2019, 2021, and 22. So they've had a heck of a run the last 8 or so years. And they won in 2017 and 2022. So, that's it on the history. Jay, if you want to kind of take it from here.
Yeah. I love hearing about how it's just been that run recent, because myself, if everyone doesn't know, I'm also an Astros fan. It's my favorite team, has been for years and years and years. And I know there's been a little bit of controversy, but I think since that controversy, I think that they've kind of proven otherwise, that they are legit and keep going. So I'm really happy to see they're still kind of the powerhouse. We'll talk a little bit more about, I think, present day kind of stuff a little later on, but and get your thoughts on it, Brent, and go from there. So I guess to start off, you're an Astros fan. How did you become an Astros fan, or why are they your favorite team?
Yeah. I mean, with me, it's a little unlike you guys, where you guys are fans of, Rusty doesn't have a real local team. And then, you're just an outlier up there.
Yeah.
So, like Greg, he loves the Yankees because of his dad. They're California boys, but they're Yankee fans. So, but with me and Mookie and Shane, everybody, normally it's their hometown team. That's all it is. You root for your hometown team, no matter what sport, no matter whatever.
Right.
I just happen to gravitate toward loving baseball, watching baseball. So growing up when I was a kid, the Astros weren't that good, but, I was born in 75. So in 80, Ryan came over, and at least that put us kind of in the spotlight. We had J.R. Richard for a little bit until the stroke. If he could have stayed healthy, those two would have made headlines for so many years. I mean, we had the best two guys in the sport. And of course, Nolan Ryan became the first $1 million athlete right there, signing with the Astros back then. But yeah, so it's just that's where I grew up, and then going to the Astrodome with my dad and my brother, those are the best memories. And we didn't have a lot of money. My parents had 4 kids. Going to a game was a big deal. I mean, it kind of is now, but it's really
Yeah.
expensive now. It was cheaper then, but no one made very much money. But yeah, even an outing now trying to take your family is expensive. But back then it was really rare. Even when the best seats in the house were $25, we didn't sit in those. But just going there, and of course, everybody could smoke. You'd be sitting right behind someone smoking cigarettes. You're choking. But it was
that's the times.
yeah. But it
Yeah.
was the greatest thing in the world. I mean, going to the Astrodome it was almost always my dad and my brother. It was us three if we went to a game. Many times my dad would have gotten tickets through work somehow. We would have driven in. We grew up in the country, Waller and Hempstead area. So, we were going in to town. It was a big deal just to do that. So going to the Astrodome, and of course, eighth wonder of the world. You know how things are when you're a kid, everything's bigger. So
Right.
And the Astrodome really was huge, and it was just awe-inspiring when you're going there as a kid, and seeing a baseball game. And it was rare. I mean, it may not have been once a year. I don't remember. I don't have tickets from all the games and stuff. I used to buy programs at all the games. I can't find those. I thought I had them, but so many things have happened in my life. There's no telling when those fell off. I've been digging through boxes trying to find. I found a lot of stuff, but not the old programs. But
Yeah.
my dad would always get us that, and of course hot dogs, and we just had a blast just being at the ballpark.
So
yeah,
were you able? Sorry to interrupt. Were you able to see them on TV, or was it a blackout area? Were you able to catch games on TV back then?
Yeah, there was no cable, so we did see them on our local stations. Yeah, so we could watch them on TV, at least most games. They may have blacked out home games. I don't remember, but you remember nothing back then sold out. So, they were.
That was kind of my next question. Like going back to like the 80s when they had some success in like 85, 86.
86, 80 and 86.
Yeah, but did they have the following that they seem to have now? Like, was it stadium always jam packed, sold out, people talking, every day, say, "Oh, did you catch it?" Like, was it like that, or did that develop more into like the 2000, 90s and 2000s, or at all, or it wasn't even later than that?
That's a good question. It was. Fans are fickle, and Houston's no different, or at least they were. Now we got a pretty rabid following with all kinds of sports. I guess the Rockets just signed KD, so that's going to be a big deal here. But but yeah, so it was 86 was a big deal. Now I know Mookie's Mets took us down. They went all the way.
The bad guys won.
It was a big deal, but we could not hit a thing. We could not hit a thing. But this was always a football town. The Houston Oilers were the thing here. Love You Blue, Earl Campbell, that whole thing was the town. I mean, it really, really was. And they just packed the house. And that was in the late 70s mostly, coming into the early 80s. But once about 86 hit and the Astros got good, we couldn't hit a thing, but we had the best pitching on the planet.
No doubt.
We had Ryan Scott, who won the Cy Young, even over Ryan. And we had Jim DeShays and a bunch of, it was amazing what happened. So it was packed in the house during that time. But the Astrodome was a lot bigger. It's 50,000-ish fans versus like 42 that Daikin now holds. So it was vast. And remember, they got rid of the exploding scoreboard many, many years back, and they renovated it where there was just a lot more seats. So selling out was not something that happened often. But 86 was, and then it was a dry spell all the way till 97. And 97 is when we finally cracked through again. And, Bagwell Biggio finally got to the playoffs because we had the run in the 90s where the Braves,
they were unstoppable.
You couldn't get through them. You just couldn't do it.
No.
And then we ran into the Padres with Kevin Brown one year. It never worked out no matter what we did. But in 97, we finally got to the playoffs, and it was a big deal. It was a big deal, and those would sell out. When Randy Johnson came in 98, you couldn't buy a ticket. I wish I had some of the pictures from that. I have a couple. of when I went, but I mean, it was just rally towels. I mean, the place was so loud. I've never been in a place as loud as when he pitched.
That's
And
awesome.
he threw 4 straight shutouts in the dome. And he went 11-1. He went 11-1 with like a 1.28 ERA or something. It was the best stretch of his whole career was here, and then he left for money.
Yep.
But we thought we were already good. In '98, we won 100 games for the first time. So we thought, man, we add Randy Johnson for the last 2 months. We're going to go into the playoffs. We are going to the World Series. And then
And it just stalled out.
Then we didn't. But those years, absolute sellouts. Just
Yeah.
But most of the time, the dome, no, there was plenty of tickets to be had. And in those days, that's what you did. You walked up and bought a ticket. It's not like now where you go online and it's just a whole different world.
Right.
But you'd park in the big parking lot and you'd walk up and see what best tickets there were or whatever you could afford, and you'd buy a ticket and go in.
Yeah.
Different deal back then. Of course, you'd keep the ticket stub. Now there's no ticket stubs.
I miss that, man. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was that was great. '98 is my favorite summer of my whole life. You got Mack and Sosa. You got the Astros finally being good. The Yankees were really good. Ripken, actually, I didn't like it, but he sat down, so it was historical.
Yeah.
He stopped his streak. He could have kept going. He just decided not to. He wasn't even hurt. But so many things happened in '98, and Randy Johnson coming over, just everything about that season. I never forget watching ESPN, and Peter Gammons came on, and the guy said, where does it look like Randy Johnson's going to go? And he's like, looks like it's going to be the Astros. And if you know our history, we never did sign, other than Nolan Ryan way back, we didn't sign free agents. We didn't sign big guys.
No.
So getting him was just monumentally mind-blowing. And they wanted to get Bagwell and Biggio some success.
Yeah.
They had individual success in spades, but then, we never had any team success. And they weren't great in the playoffs, but we needed to add something, and they added the biggest thing they could possibly go out and get. So '98 will always be, a special place in my heart. Of course, the Astrodome went through '99, so it wasn't long after that we moved to. It was the ballpark at Union Station, then Enron Field, then Astros Field, then Minute Maid Park, now Daikin Park. So it's had 5 names.
Yeah.
But this is
We
like
should have asked you to do the history. That's why you're on this episode.
Yeah, they built it around the old Union Station, where the literal train station that they've renovated, and that's what they built the ballpark around. So they had the brick red uniforms when they moved there. It was about the bricks of that building.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We've since gone back to orange, of course, and all that stuff. Like this one, we'll shout out Scott Reindeer Studios here, but the original Bagwell art I have of his, the oil painting.
Yep.
I wasn't gonna not show that tonight, because this is my favorite guy other than Ryan, my favorite all-time Astro by far. But with this brick red that they wore was because of Union Station.
I didn't know that.
The brick building. Okay. And they even had Junction Jack. The mascot was a bunny that was kind of built around that stuff, and then they went back to orbit many years later, which is great because that's what everybody wanted. But yeah, I remember me and my friend would go on our lunch break. We'd drive down into the downtown, which is where Minute Maid or Daikin Park is, and we would watch it as it was getting constructed. We'd sit there and just dream about what was gonna be. And then when it opened, we went to the beginning of it all, and opening games and all that kind of stuff, and it was magical. But I did miss the dome. I mean, I that's my favorite place ever. It always will be. Just to see it sitting there rotting, it's just sad. But yeah, 3 high schoolers got arrested literally last week, going in there, doing some
is
kind
there
of video.
A plan for it, or is it just going to sit there and just?
Every time they come up with a plan, it needs a billion, 2 billion, whatever the heck it is, to redo everything in that area, and they just never do it. It never gets funded because it would be taxpayers. It would be however complicated that is. I don't know, but. Yeah, they come up with all kinds of great plans to make it an entertainment facility and all that. And it's in the same parking lot. It's right next to the Texans football stadium now. And that kind of dwarfs the dome now if you look at them side by side. But, back in the day, indoor baseball, I mean, it's a historic place. A lot of big events happen there. And if you're just talking about baseball, I mean, Mickey Mantle hit the first home run in there.
I didn't know that.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't either.
So. And there are just a lot of big things happen, from tennis and boxing, just all kinds of huge events happened there. Concerts, all kinds of things. You know, rodeo was there for many, many years. All the big names in George Strait and everybody else going back, you know, was there. So I really
Yeah.
wish they would preserve it, but you know, it just doesn't seem like the funding is ever there. Every time they say it's going to happen for sure, and then it just doesn't. But yeah,
They
2018
don't
they
know what to
opened
do
it
with
up. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so they don't know what to do with it, but they don't want to tear it down.
They can't get the funding. They have great plans. I mean, they drew them up. They had all kinds of renderings of what was going to be, and hotels and entertainment. All this, it looked really, really great, and it was going to save it. But they never get the funding pushed through. So then it's always kick the can down the road. And a few years later, someone says, "Okay, we got another group together. We're going to do this to it," and everybody's happy, and then it doesn't happen. But in 2018, they opened it up for a few hours, and they just said, "Hey, it's the last time you're going to get in the dome. Anybody that wants to come, you can come for free." And they thought it would be just, you know, I don't know how many people they thought, but it was thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
Wow.
And somehow
That's
Crane
awesome.
is, I don't know if Crane owns that place or whoever it was that owned the property. They had no idea what they were getting into, but they ended up letting it just stay open until everybody left. So me and my friend
That's
got there.
cool.
It took us 3 hours to get in. Just
Wow.
standing outside. So instead of a line, it was like 50 people wide, and it wrapped all the way around the whole Astrodome. I mean, just tens and tens and tens of thousands of people just wanting to come to say goodbye, and we were getting weary. It was hot. It was hot. There was just tons of people. 3 hours every time. You know, there's no literal corner to a circle, but as we get around a little bit further around the corner, we think, okay, it's going to go in right there. Going to go in right there.
It just
Hour
keeps
after
going.
hour, it's like it never ended. We were like, where do we even go in? It turned out it was basically around the whole stadium before, and it was just a one little single file line that was able to get in that door. It wasn't like you're walking through some big gates. It was just a door.
Wow.
So it just took forever, and it was well worth it. We got inside finally, got to be inside the dome. They had a bunch of stuff set up on the floor where you could walk through and look at memorabilia and, you know, Bagwell and Biggio's locker, you know, Nolan Ryan stuff, all kinds of different things. Of course, AstroTurf, and it was invented for this building.
Right.
You know, it opened up a real grass stadium with clear ceiling.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
but
I didn't know.
the glare was so bad no one could catch a ball. It was just super bright. So they said we got to paint that, and of course that killed the grass. So they painted it all white, all the glass, and then they couldn't do it. So the engineers had to get to work and create AstroTurf for us to be able to play. That's where it all started, with turf
Wow.
for football and everything.
That is a history lesson indeed. I'm
It
just
is.
taking all of it. I had no idea about any of that.
Yeah,
Really
it's
cool.
amazing. Yeah, I just think they need to save it. It's too historical to get rid of. It was the eighth wonder of the world.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah,
You look
it's
at
the
the old.
first for a lot of things in baseball.
Yeah, it really was, and I mean, you know, just people. I mean, if you look at the literature from those days, people would come from all around the world on a vacation to Houston to see the Astrodome. And of course, they used to have Astro World adjacent to it, where you could walk across, and you know, it's basically was
Wow.
our Disneyland, you know. And it was the Astro Domain, and they called the whole thing. And you had the Astro, yeah, just a bunch of different buildings there that some of them are still there, some of them aren't, but it was a big deal. And I hate to just see it sit there. At least they haven't demoed it. So
Right.
you know,
Right.
a lot of places have imploded. But yeah, so it's pretty crazy. But yeah, right here, I'm going to detach you for a second.
Yeah.
First of all, that is bunting. That's from Minute Maid, though. That's not from the dome. But this I have above the TV. So basically, it looks like you've busted out the wall and it's looking into the Astrodome.
That is cool.
Okay.
So it's a
cool.
mural. It's actually video at the plate there. But that's pretty cool. But this here is actual Astrodome seats that I'm sitting right next to.
I was just
Wow.
about to ask you
Okay.
if you had anything from the Astrodome.
Yeah, so those two seats are real.
That
So
is awesome.
I just happen to be facing the other way because they're facing the television there. But yeah, that's real Astrodome seats, and they're like this thick of cushion. So now we're sitting in these hard plastic seats. That was the first thing I remember when me and my friend went to the new stadium to actually watch a game. It was like, oh my gosh, we have hard plastic seats now. We had the greatest seats in the world for 40 years in the Astrodome. I mean, these things have got 5 inches of cushion. They're the best seats ever. But yeah, so I bought a couple of these a few years ago. I didn't get them when they first put them on sale and took them out of the. So I paid more than those guys, more than those guys did. But the guy I bought it from did go to that, and he waited 8 hours outside in line to be able to buy his seats. He bought 6 seats or something, and he let these go, these 2 red ones. But
is the inside of the Astrodome pretty much all stripped down at this point, or is there still some more stuff in there?
Yeah, some weird law. I forget what it is. You have to keep 15% of the seats in there or something. I forget. Weird. Someone told me the legalities behind it, but there are a few. But like the Marlboro sign, the American flag, all that stuff's still hanging. It's just it's kind of cool and eerie at the same time. But yeah, most of it's all stripped down. There's a bunch of stuff on the field, rolled up AstroTurf, all kinds of things like that. But yeah, those kids that walked through there the other day illegally and posted that video, you could kind of see a lot of the eating establishments still had signs, and it's weird, man.
Oh, okay.
I wish instead of building a new big $1 billion stadium, they would take that money and renovate it, keep it.
Renovate that.
Just you could make it fancy. And heck, they don't open Daikin Park. It's too hot. Even in April when it starts, it's too hot. They never open it ever, ever, ever. Except for when there's nothing going on and they want the rain to get in. But when people are there watching a game, they don't open it. So it's like, it doesn't do us much good. When we first went, they used to open it a lot more back when they first opened it. So I have pictures, it's beautiful over there whenever it's open. But I think that in the playoffs, they do like it shut just because of the noise. It gets real loud and that's, supposedly advantageous. But for regular season games, man, early on, they should open it if it's 80 degrees or something, because it's going to be 110 before you know it, and there's no way to open that thing.
In Houston.
Yeah, it's brutal.
So.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say. I was
going to say people are joking about it being bought the name by Daikin because that's an AC company. And they're like, they need to do a better job of pumping the AC in there now that it's called Daikin Park, because the upper deck's hot.
Yeah, I can only imagine that Houston heat. So you've already shown a few pieces of memorabilia. So I've seen you show quite a few pieces on your channel. Yeah. So would you say how much of your collection? I'll ask the question. How much of your channel, or excuse me, how much of your collection is memorabilia versus cards?
Nowadays, it's, I mean, if you go by space, it has to be memorabilia just because of the shelves. And when we finish this at the end, I'm going to walk you guys around to a couple things that you need to see that I haven't shown on the channel. But as far as regular stuff, it's mostly cards. So when it comes to Astros, I mean, I've got stuff all the way from my childhood all the way up through now. As far as memorabilia, Gainey's balls, a ton of balls that I've caught in batting practice, all that kind of stuff. Bobbleheads, I've been to every giveaway. Rings, just hats. I mean, just all kinds of different things. There's tons of that. I mean, definitely the volume and the value is by far in cards. But if you're talking about just the stuff that you see when you walk in, there's a lot of memorabilia. There's literally so much. I have stacks of it where I don't have anywhere to put it. And I used to frame art for many years, and I have so many frame pieces around that you can't even hang on the walls. So, but I don't want to get rid of them either. So, and I've bought a lot of signs from the stadium. Every once in a while, they'll do some kind of sale, and you just got to be lucky to be there at the right place at the right time. And I have a lot of stuff, they used to hang in the stadium and stuff. So, there's no way to display it all at once, but I just like that kind of stuff. So it's cool to have it. But yeah, it's a lot of memorabilia and a lot of cards.
Cool. So now you said you're. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jake.
Go ahead, Rusty.
You go ahead.
So you said that your favorite players, Bagwell and Ryan, for sure. Now, do you kind of like stick to getting mostly then those 2 players when it comes to collecting, or do you just collect? If you find a person in an Astros uniform, are you just collecting that?
Good question. No, and I collect I just love baseball. I mean, this episode's about Astros, and of course, most of my memorabilia is about Astros, but because I'm here. But as far as cards, I collect all kinds of stuff. But Nolan Ryan would be my number one, and then Bagwell as far as Astros are concerned. I've really pivoted to where I'm really only collecting retired guys now. Too many guys come and go. Free agency, prospecting, of course, is a dead end street. You get a guy you're excited about, they never make it. I used to pick up cards with those guys. I did. I used to do that. And even up to 2-3 years ago, I'd try to do that. But we've had everybody from Springer to Correa to Bregman to now Tucker. I mean, it's painful. So I don't collect any of that. I have that, but I don't go out and buy that anymore. Right. So I'm only buying the retired guys pretty much in baseball card collecting, period. But when it comes to Astros, definitely. But Bagwell has always been my favorite guy ever since his rookie year, and I'll tell that story in a minute. But yeah, definitely him. And Biggio, obviously, both of them are the most important guys outside of Ryan. But they were only here. Their whole careers were here, which is very rare to have two teammates together 15 years anywhere. Yeah. There's only been 2 or 3 of those ever. And a lot of things could have happened. The Yankees went after Biggio. A lot of different things happened. They took a little less to stay, which doesn't really happen today, obviously.
Right.
You see what's going on. People
there's
get
no hometown discount.
No, there's just too much money. I mean, you weren't getting $300 or $400 million, and now $700 million. There's no loyalty when they're throwing around numbers like that. But when it was the difference between 10 and 12 million, sometimes people would stay. So those guys are. But if you grew up here and lived here, I mean, it was a Batman and Robin. I mean, Bagwell was Batman. I mean, Biggio's great, but you knew who the big star was. I mean, the MVP of the league type of guy was Bagwell. Biggio was the scrappy guy that got hits, got stolen bases. I mean, he retired as the #1 all-time right-handed doubles hitter. You got Tris Speaker leading all time. He retired #1. So went in the Hall of Fame, obviously 3,000 hits, all that kind of stuff. But Pujols stuck around long enough to beat him. So yeah. So Pujols is now the right-handed guy. But yeah, he was great. But it was an awesome tandem, and they led that clubhouse. Like they led. Everything was out of the. They were head down. You hit a home run. You're not showing anybody up. You just go around the bases. That's the way it is now. I mean, Altuve and these guys, these aren't back flippers and all of that kind of stuff. But back then, it was really serious. They did not want any of that nonsense. And of course, back then you'd get beamed. Back then you could retaliate. Now you can't retaliate.
Right.
But they still have that kind of mindset. They just want to be business. Get it done. And Bagwell and Biggio were very serious. If someone did something that embarrassed them, they immediately pulled him into the clubhouse when they got back after circling the bases and told him what was up. So, they led the clubhouse. But Bagwell, all my experiences with him have been good. I've, met him a few times and stuff over the years. Biggio, a little more arrogant for whatever reason. Hasn't been quite as good in person. They say never meet your heroes, and that's true. and he's fine. He's just Bagwell has been so pleasant and so humble. In my experience, of course, I'm sure there's other people with different experiences. Yeah. But that's just the way it's been for me. And I've gotten knuckles from Biggio. I mean, he's done little things here and there, but Bagwell is just always. He comes across as this all shucks, even though he's Hall of Famer and all that kind of stuff. He's always been real pleasant when I've been around him. I used to go to the baseball banquets. They held those every year. They don't have them anymore, but I get to meet all the players and get autographs and pictures and stuff like that. So a lot of great memories with that. Cool. For many, many years. And once you started getting tickets to that, most people don't even know about those. But once you got tickets to it, they would keep inviting you every year. And it was a pretty small event, but it'd be like a steak dinner, and they'd have MCs and everybody that won awards from all the local. It was a baseball writers banquet. So anybody from high school on up was there getting their awards. And of course,
that's really cool.
Yeah, Milo Hamilton emceed the whole thing. So I got to meet him a bunch of times and do all that. So those banquets are some of my best memories, period. Because felt like you were in this little secret society that nobody knew about. Right. You're dressed up, it was a coat and tie training, and you got to listen to all the players talk and coaches and everything that everybody else didn't get, and they didn't broadcast this. So I mean, if you weren't there, you just didn't experience it. And I used to lug around a camera everywhere. We didn't have cell phones with cameras, so
right.
You had to kind of make your way. If you wanted memories, you kind of had to take some chances and bring your camera and stuff like that, and I did. But yeah, like this here, it all started in the Astrodome, of course. These are the pictures I've shown before, but these are the pictures of Ryan that I took myself as a kid.
Those are awesome.
Now
Very cool.
the cool thing is that they didn't have a bullpen. The bullpen was just right down the sideline. It was this mound and a plate. And so that picture there is my favorite.
Yeah, so cool, man.
So
Yeah,
taking pictures of him just from the sideline, warming up. And that was in the Astrodome. I've gotten those pictures blown up and stuff like that. But the banquet in '94, of course, we didn't know there would be a strike. But they introduced the new blue and gold uniforms there at that banquet. So no one else even knew about it until that banquet. But I have pictures of all of that. The guys, they made like a runway. So all the players with the different uniforms from the different eras would walk out and turn around, all that kind of stuff. So I was taking pictures of all that kind of thing. I still have this hat. I don't know how I still have it, but this, of course, is what they were debuting.
Yep,
and
that's the one that I used to have. I used to rock that one way back when.
Yeah, and this is probably the most common, famous Bagwell era hat, but this was only that night.
That's cool.
So it was a limited edition.
Very
You
cool.
only could buy it there whenever they introduced this particular uniform. But I have pictures just from all kinds of stuff. But that was a super fun thing about Houston baseball was that baseball writers banquet every year. I have this binder here, just all kinds of crazy. I mean, autographs.
Hold on a sec. Sorry about that. I'm gonna
That's
put you
cool.
right in.
Yeah, you could put me up there, but
Yep.
I'd take the program from the dinner and get it signed by everybody I could. There's Big
That's
Joe
Wow.
there. But that was
94.
1994 there. That was that one. So Terry Collins was the manager, Eddie Thomas, Phil Garner. There's Holy Toledo, Milo Hamilton right there with his Hall of Fame tagline. Drayton McClain, the owner at the time. Luis Gonzalez, of course, famous for, ending a World Series later. Craig Biggio single signed on this one. And there's Biggio in '96. There's, what that. And a lot of these, you take these out and open them up, and there's lots of autographs and stuff inside, like where their picture is or whatever.
Right.
But here's my dad. This is cool right here. So Milo Hamilton, my dad went up and swiped his name tag and his notes from the night. So that's what he had sitting and his notes for the emceeing the thing. And then I got a picture of my dad giving him this. So there's Milo with my dad. Of course, Milo's passed a long time ago, and he's signed this. So
That's
I got a
really
picture.
cool.
Just things like that, you were experiencing as a younger person. That was just super awesome. Jimmy Wynn. That's a Jimmy Wynn autograph there.
Awesome.
More name tags, Durker and stuff. But this here is Red Murph. This is the scout that discovered Nolan Ryan.
Oh,
That's crazy. Cool. It's crazy. One of the things I cannot find is a letter from Red Murph. And I could go through this, but I mean, it's just tons of that kind of stuff. But I have a letter from Red Murph, or at least I did, where he wrote a whole thing to me, Dear Brent, and it was this whole letter. He sat down. My dad got him to do it, and he sat down. I don't know where my dad saw him. Maybe it was at work or something, but he wrote me this whole thing. It was Nolan Ryan's 50th birthday, and he wrote this whole letter to me about, how great Nolan Ryan was and how honored he was to be the guy to find him. And I mean, it was this coolest thing ever. And of course, he signed it. But I cannot find that. That's one of the things I've torn all these boxes apart trying to find. I found a bunch of other stuff, but that I forgot I had or didn't remember I still had. But that one there, no. One of the other special events was in the Dome, 1993. It was my best friend's birthday, April 2nd. So you know how now, Jay, the silver boot is between us and the Rangers.
Rangers,
and
yep.
Whoever wins the most games against each other in a year gets the silver boot that year. And we've been winning it forever now. So, but back then it was one game at the end of spring training they would play in the real ballpark. 1 year it would be in the Dome. 1 year it would be in Arlington Stadium, the old Arlington Stadium. And whoever won that game got the silver boot. That's how it started. It was just a one game. It was a one game exhibition. Well, 1993 comes around. It's Nolan Ryan's last year. He's with the Rangers. That game falls into the Dome. So talk about a sellout. The biggest
Yeah.
deal I've ever been to. Nolan Ryan homecoming pitching against the Astros. And I can't overstate how big of a deal that was. But this was the program. This was the program. Of course, there he is. Of course, they're
Awesome.
talking. And
So cool.
this is a picture I took that I blew up to an 8x10. Once again, I'm just carrying a crappy little camera around, but there's the high leg kick.
That is awesome.
So that's a picture. That's a picture from that night.
That is so cool.
That was such a cool night to go. And I still have this. This is not something I bought later. This is literally something I bought there. I still have the t-shirt that I bought that night. So
Wow.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Wow.
you got Nolan Ryan with the Rangers coming back. Oh, Astrodome in the background. They got the date. Yeah, that's the
It
kind of
is
stuff
great
I'll
that
never
you've been
forget.
able to. It's great that you've been able to hang on to all this stuff and just document that. Those
There's
events.
so many things I haven't, and it's a shame, but that's just the way life is. But I love the way I've ended up with some of the stuff, over the years. And we were
It's
talking
amazing that it was representative of both teams. Like they had him in the Texas Rangers uniform, but with the Astrodome in the background.
Yeah,
That's
Right.
cool. You know what I mean?
and of course he was a Houston legend. I mean,
Yeah.
he lived in Alvin. He lived here. I was, the only reason he only went to the Rangers is because he didn't want to be further from his family. That's the only reason he has, he didn't win 400 games.
Right.
Because he stayed here with crappy teams instead of going for the money somewhere else. He wanted to watch his kids grow up. He was a good family man. That's the only difference. We would be talking about him in a totally different light. People that think he's overrated would not think he's overrated if he played for good teams.
Yeah.
But in '86 when we had that team, we couldn't hit anything, but we had the pitching. This is the actual September 28th, 1986 newspaper. So what happened was those 3 games in a row. This will never happen again. But those 3 games in a row. So Jim DeShays pitches a 2-hitter toward the down at the end of the stretch, trying to get to the playoffs. He pitches a 2-hitter, and that's the game where he set the all-time record. He struck out the first 8 batters of the game. Ryan, nobody had ever done that. Now Jacob deGrom did it a few years ago.
Right.
But up until then, it was only one guy ever to do it. And DeShays struck out the first 8 guys. He pitched a 2-hitter. So then Nolan comes up the next game, pitches a 1-hitter. And then the next game, Mike Scott pitches the only no-hitter to clinch the playoffs ever. And that's still the case. So he had a two-hitter, then a 1-hitter, and then Mike Scott says, "Hold my beer. I'm going to pitch a no-hitter to clinch the division." Wow. So
Mike Scott's stats during that playoff run were incredible. Yeah, incredible.
He won the Cy Young that year. He was the best pitcher in the league. He was amazing. But those 3 guys, those 3 games were just magical. And like I said, we got beat in the playoffs, but just getting there, that was a big deal. Here's another thing from a banquet. So this is a picture I took of Biggio signing, and that's a pretty good one actually.
Great.
But he signed this hat for me, and luckily I got a white hat because I wanted him to sign it in like black Sharpie.
That's cool.
So yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool.
So that was one of the cool things that happened back then, with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I would always take cameras. I always take some kind of pen, eventually Sharpies when that became the thing, Also, stuff like this is actual dirt from the Astrodome.
Wow.
Awesome.
I just like having cool stuff like that. So
yeah.
I got that.
That's really cool.
When Enron Field first opened up, they had the hill in the outfield. Do y'all remember that?
Tal's Hill, right?
Flagpole. Yeah, Tal's Hill. It was named after Tal Smith. Tal was our president. And they had, when they got rid of that, this is Tal's Hill dirt. So
Wow.
kind of the similar situation. And then this is 2017 World Series dirt. So I just kind of have those 3 sitting by each other on the shelf over there, just so it's talking about just memorabilia versus cards and stuff. Sometimes it's cool. Like this is one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite things here is actual Bagwell gloves. So I've shown these before, but
yeah.
And there's the pad. He had a bigger pad that stuck onto this because his hand got broke 3 times. He would have had 500 home runs easily. But yeah, these are real deal gloves there. love that kind of stuff. But yeah, Bagwell back 1991. This is September 25th at the Astrodome. Went down to the dugout. Bagwell was out there taking fielding practice, and he saw me and he walked over. So this is his rookie year. He walked over, got a drink of water, and I think he was just doing that just to not look like he was just walking over to me. And I asked him if he would sign, and he signed his rookie card. So
Yeah,
that
that's
was
awesome.
that was his only card back then, and I went down there with it in a Sharpie, not knowing I would get anything. I don't even remember anybody else standing around. No one did that kind of stuff too much back then. But that's if I had to grab a card and leave the house in a fire,
That's it.
it probably is that one, just because rookie year. There it is.
Mine's not signed though.
I got it
Yeah.
somewhere.
And if it wasn't signed in his rookie year, it wouldn't be the same. And it was in the
Never mind.
Astrodome. There you go. There you go. But speaking of autograph, this one there's only 25 of. This is in the Topps Gilded collection. This is one of those metallic framed cards, just like a 1/4 inch thick.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the Hall of Fame plaques. They only made 25 of these, so you can't get them anymore. But it's the Hall of Fame plaque autograph.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. So numbers are 25.
Yeah. So once they hit eBay, when they were first opening these packs, when they came out, they're gone. So if you didn't grab one, they just don't come back up.
Yeah.
There are other cool cards in there, but the Hall of Fame plaques, they made a bunch of parallels of the different ones, and there's some with 25 numbered, but they didn't make a bunch of different ones of these. So literally there's only 25.
That's cool.
So you can't buy a 99 version of this or whatever,
Right.
So that was just super cool. Of course, him going in the Hall of Fame was a big deal for me, But yeah, just tons of stuff over the years. Like, Clemens and Pettit came here. Of course, they're Houston guys. They lived here forever.
Yep.
Clemens still lives here, and then Pettit lived down in Deer Park. But I did get this. It's signed by both of them.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Nolan and Clemens on that.
Those signatures are so good.
Yeah, really good silver signatures, and it's got the hologram and stuff, But I already know they're real. But yeah, that's a cool thing, because it's
very cool.
We've had with Verlander, Clemens, Ryan, Randy Johnson. We've had some of the other than Maddox, we've had almost all the just ridiculous stars here for at least a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
But back in, I forget what year this was, but this was in the new park, not the Dome. But this picture here is from way back when. So this is Nolan with Reed Ryan.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a famous picture, here when he was young. Of course, he became president of the Astros, and he was in our front office through a lot of the winning years and stuff. But anyways, this when he was a kid. So when he started working with the Astros, they made a double bobblehead of that.
Oh, that's really cool.
And they gave it away at the stadium. First 10,000 people. But then we got home and we started opening them, and then
oh my God.
I was like, what?
Wow.
So I looked it up. When this happened, I looked it up. They signed 50. So Nolan Ryan signed 50 out of the 10,000.
Wow.
And I ended up with one.
That is awesome.
That was the coolest thing.
Coolest bobblehead ever.
Yeah. I don't have good luck with anything. That was probably the best luck of all time. And the cool thing was not knowing it. Like if we'd have known there was 50 of these signed, we would have been looking for them, all that kind of stuff. Probably offering people money for theirs. Who knows?
Could you imagine keeping that thing in a box and never opening it, and then just
Yes, you'd never know. But we were just opening them. I don't even know. We were just opening them after we got home, and I looked at it and I'm like, wait a second here.
Signed.
Yeah, and then it turns out they signed 50 of those things. So it's like
awesome.
It was a big deal. But yeah, that was super cool. Another thing that's extinct now is being able to wait outside when people drive out and try to get autographs. They have too much security. You don't do that no more. But back then, so this would have been 2000. Ken Caminiti was back from the Padres, of course, before he passed and all that. He came back here, and I framed all these things up. But I had the only thing I had was the program with me. So when they come out in their car and stop, I'd have them sign their spot in the program, and that's Caminiti. Rest
is
in
cool.
peace, Caminiti. And then this one game, we waited probably 2 hours after the game, and we were just about to give up. And then a black Mercedes drove out, and I have a photo of it. But Bagwell drove out.
Yeah, that's cool.
He stopped, rolled down his window, and I had him sign that.
With that batting stance.
Yeah, exactly. So those days were fun, just waiting around trying to get that kind of thing. This is my favorite program from the Astrodome.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I apologize about my dog, guys. He's kind of not happy about something right now.
That's fine. He just wants to be a part of it. But yeah, so
84
that was
scorebook.
Yeah, 1984 right there. So I used to get programs at all the things. I can't find all my originals, but that is something. This is kind of interesting. It's a tiny little record, but it plays the ninth inning of Ryan's 5th no-hitter, which is the only no-hitter he pitched with the Astros. But it's actual little record.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you throw this on a record player, I got an extra one, so I'm trying to flatten one of these out, and then I am gonna play it one day. But
Yeah,
that was
really
kind of cool because he had seven no-hitters, but he only had one here, and it was early on. This is another thing I put together as a kid, and it's got a bunch of moisture in there. I don't know. I don't want to redo it because I made this as a kid, but I used some kind of wrapping paper, baseball wrapping paper behind there, and then I had all the names I wrote here and drew that, and all these are just autographs I've got at the ballpark.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Actually, Craig Reynolds I got at some kind of church event, but all the rest of these, Kevin Mitchell with the Giants, all these, Luis Gonzalez, even Darryl Kyle, rest his soul. He pitched a no-hitter for us, but he died way, way too young. But all these would have been Bagwell. All these would have been guys I got at the Astrodome.
Wow.
That's really
and
cool.
I had framed this up as a kid, and I don't want to take it out and fix it up because it's just too cool. Kind of like that Bagwell autograph rookie on the plaque. I've been tempted to put that in a nice holder, but then it's been in there so long.
Nah, man, that yellow gives it character. It's an original.
Yep.
Right. You've collected a lot of autographs.
Yeah, and it used to be easier.
Yeah.
And of course, it wasn't a money thing. Now it's all about pack pulled and everything being worth money and all that kind of stuff. And going to shows now, it's big time. Even a show autograph was cheap back then, $10-15 or something. Now it's hundreds of dollars to get these that aren't even worth that. So it's you're just paying for the experience,
Right.
But back then it wasn't like that. You were just, we're waiting around at the ballpark. That's all it was.
Right.
And it was rare, and so it was really cool when it happened. But here's something else I got from the ballpark. There's a bunch of renderings of the new ballpark before it opened. So there's a lot of changes that didn't even come out like this.
Wow.
They started selling some of this stuff off, and I was like, man, I don't have these top loaded yet, but
those are cool, man.
Yeah, these are really, really cool because you can't get them. They came straight from the team.
Wow.
So I bought one of every kind they had there. But yeah, a lot of things didn't.
During the design at the stadium.
Yeah, this was like the new design. They were doing renderings for it. And
so that's where the train comes in then, right? Is from the Union
the train's up. Yeah, this building here is Union Station behind this wall. So right behind the Crawford boxes is Union Station. And so that's why they have a train running across here.
Gotcha.
Because it was a real train station for decades and decades and all that. But yeah, just cool stuff like that I've gotten over the years. There's way too much to even show, but I just put a bunch of stuff here, to be able to kind of go over since we were doing this tonight.
Yeah,
but lots of cool things. Like this sign would have been hanging in the stadium somewhere. So probably in a shop or something like that. They had a bunch of different numbers and stuff. But I got the Ryan, which I was really, really happy about. And this is plastic. This is the real deal. It's not just cardboard or something. But stuff like that, I've gotten, for sale over the years. Let me see this one. One of my favorite images ever. This was hanging in a shop somewhere, but they sold it. But it's got the burnt.
That's cool.
The bat with the hole in it.
Yeah.
Just a classic. But yeah, just cool stuff like that. I've always tried to take advantage of being able to get stuff like that. But so many things over the years you can't even go through it all. But really cool image like this video.
That's a really cool one. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great looking photo.
Yeah. So, once again, it's mounted on foam board. It's kind of cool that it was actually hanging there, Man, it is. There's so many cool things over the years, but here's the Bagwell. So wherever that was hanging. So I got
Awesome.
the Bagwell and the Ryan, which is pretty cool. And I probably didn't buy those at the same time, so I just kind of lucked out to get both of that. Here's a cool one. This is when they were going to build the Astrodome, and it's got a bunch of the guys involved there, but
Wow.
But super cool. Just had the model.
So do you find a lot of these things on eBay?
No, this is all at the stadium.
Wow.
It's all stuff that was hanging there, and then every once in a while they'll just sell out some stuff, and you just got to be lucky.
Okay.
There's one store there that they used to. It seems to not happen much anymore. What you'll find now is this kind of stuff. I got this year at the first game at opening day because it wouldn't have been there later. But this was a locker tag of Yordan Alvarez that would have been hanging in the postseason last year in his locker. So this would have been hanging over his locker. They'll sell that kind of stuff off, and you just got to find it immediately, or it's gone.
Wow.
Of anything good. So you'll find this stuff, but all that stuff that was, archived for many, many years. Some of it from the Dome, some of it from early in this ballpark. You just don't find them anymore. But like this, I did get this. It's not a big name, but we met this guy. He was awesome to my son. But David Hensley, this is, and of course I was there in 22 World Series when we won. But this was his locker tag. So, but it's actual World Series.
That's cool.
That would have been hanging over his locker.
Super cool.
So stuff like that, I've found and been very, very happy with.
Right.
This one has the price tag still $50. So it's not like they were giving them away, but
sure,
if it's Altuve or something, it's hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
They had a thing where you could, after the 17 World Series, they had a thing where you could custom get this kind of Lego man. Look, see, you got your name on there and stuff. So
wow.
there's some fun stuff over the years that I've gotten. That I just saw this when I was looking for this episode. I'm like, I'll just pull that down.
That's cool.
You get your own little guy.
Cool.
But the best stuff they have is the game use stuff. Like this is a cool one, man. This is Verlander. So ALDS Game 1 2018 versus Cleveland. It even tells you the batter, the foul ball. They have holograms on these, so if you scan them, you can look online and see exactly what game, what pitch, whatever.
That's cool.
And then you go find that game. You can literally watch this thing being pitched and thrown around or batted off or whatever. This is a foul ball, but this is a Verlander in the ALDS ball. So these were
amazing.
Yeah, these weren't cheap, but I figured, man, Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Postseason thrown ball. Yeah. And if you find one that's like a home run or something significant, it's thousands of dollars. But they have, but just stuff like that they sell off. I just think it's, it's neat. So, it's not, I'm kind of all about the cards with everything else, but I'm kind of cards and memorabilia when it just comes to my team, just a little bit different to me, And then of course got to show this 1 of 1 Fanatics Emanate.
Is this your giant one? Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, that is the Tequila Sunrise.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the 1 of 1 Nolan Ryan. There's only one of these, iridescent green with the blue signature, and it's perfect.
Man, look at the shine on that.
I think that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
It's literally the coolest thing I've ever seen, and I just lucked into it. I sold a whole bunch of stuff before the auction ended. He had it up for $1,500. Just buy it now. Yeah, someone could have done that, but he ended up relisting it as an auction, and I sold a bunch of stuff just thinking, man, maybe. And I was gonna buy a gold one to 50, and they have a black signature, and it doesn't shine, but it's still really cool.
No, that is incredible.
When this came up, and it's just the Tequila Sunrise jersey, these great pictures, perfect autograph. There's only one of them in the world. I just man, I got to go for it. And when it ended,
awesome.
When it ended and I won, I mean, I literally couldn't believe it. I thought there would be some giant snipes, happening at the end there, but
I bet that was a good feeling.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. But Yeah, so back to the Dome days. Those were the great days. But of course, we've had this big run lately. But we'll show this Derek Bell since you were talking about him.
Yeah.
One of the original Killer Bees. But it was Bell, Biggio, and Bagwell when it started.
People
And
forget
then,
about Bell.
yeah, because he was the original. He was the original
Yep.
three, and then there was a couple other guys, Sean Barry, people like that were
Yeah.
part of that early stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one of my favorite cards ever. This is an artist-proof version of it, just because hey, why not get something special? But I collect anything with the Astrodome in it, and this is one of the best they ever made.
That's cool.
Wow.
So of
That
course
is unique.
You can get a standard one real cheap, but they made his card, this card.
I don't
sitting
think
up
I've
in the
ever seen that before.
Yeah, you got to get one. This is the
Yeah.
artist proof you can see there, but just a fantastic card. My favorite place in the world.
Yeah, that is
They
so
have the
cool.
baseball stitching in the design.
Yeah,
That's
they had the
cool.
baseball stitching that year.
Yeah,
And
that
then
is really cool.
Just why they did this card like this, who knows? But one of the coolest, just coolest things. And here's a card that ties both eras together. This is a time-spanning tandem. This happens to be the gold to 75. They numbered the golds to 75 instead of 50 on these, but it's Bagwell and Jordan.
Yeah.
So you got kind of the big
Awesome.
bats of different eras. These clock hands and all that stuff is gold, whereas it's normally not. So that's
Very
the
cool.
difference. That's the difference on that. But it's kind of cool when you get the different eras. They do have some super shiny ones, like this one has Altuve, Jordan, and Tucker. This one's pretty wild.
Oh wow.
But the cool
Like lava.
this is an orange. This is an orange to 25. And
Yeah,
when you're
that's
talking
cool.
about Astros and orange, it's just
Yeah.
it
Gotta
just
do
works. But this crazy orange lava thing is just
That's
that is cool.
insane.
yeah. There's only 25 of those, so it's just beautiful. But yeah, like I said, I don't really buy this kind of stuff much anymore. But this one I got a few years ago. This is of course Pena's been playing all-star baseball this year.
Mhm.
But this is a rookie card that there's only 36 of. And I bought it. It's made to look, this set is made to look, these inserts are the Topps building that they were in many, many years ago. So
Okay.
back in the 50s, I think this was somewhere in New York, whatever. I think it was the Bush Terminal is the name of the building. And they made these cards, these die cut cards. They only made 36 serial number ones of each.
That's cool.
I guess it's right there on the front. You can see it there. But yeah.
Yep.
So I got
Yep.
the Pena rookie a few years ago when this came out. Like I said, some of these things dry up and you really can't buy them. Of course, Orbit being our mascot, I got one of these from the big league, but they have a super rare version that's not numbered, but it's like a case hit, but it's a foil.
That's fun.
Awesome.
So it's got space in the background.
That is awesome.
You
Yeah.
literally can't find these are going for over $100 and something, but this one's cool because it has the stadium you can see. So that's why I
Yeah.
bought this one anyways. This is cheap and easy, but that one is very, very not easy.
It's got like
But
the
it's-
Milky Way behind him. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course, Astro theme,
Yeah.
it's just it
Right.
kind of makes sense. And then a couple other cards here. This is a 2020 Topps Decades Best 90s, since we're talking about the 90s Astros.
Mhm.
This is a Gem Mint 10, but it's kind of cool because it's
Yeah.
got Bagwell coming in,
Nice.
Biggio congratulating him on a home run or whatever. So kind of
Yeah,
a cool
that
card.
is- that
PSA
is-
10. Don't see many
Yeah.
of those. I do like throwbacks to the old days as well, and I like floating heads and stuff. This is a 2001 Upper Deck Vintage, if you've ever even heard of that.
No.
Nobody talks about that, but this was the team lineup for the Astros. This is a PSA 10, but floating heads.
That's cool.
But you got Bagwell and Biggio and the guys there, and of course
Upper
Berkman
Deck used to
became a
make
killer
great
bee.
cards.
Oh yeah, they were just fantastic. I really wish they still. But yeah, Berkman of course became the other
Yep.
big killer
Yep.
bee. He was fantastic. He's top 10 switch hitter of all time.
He is a guy that doesn't get enough attention because he had just a monster career.
He did. It's just it wasn't quite long enough for people to vote for him. I mean, he literally fell off the below 5% thing the first year, and I'm like,
Yeah.
he's so much better than so many of these other guys. I'm not saying he should have got in, but
Yeah.
he should have got more of a look. It doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah.
He was amazing. But yeah, being a switch hitter and being as good as he was. Here's something else unique. So when me and my son got to go play catch on the field, I made this little thing. So that's the ball we got to use, and we got some dirt and and
Yeah,
grass.
that's cool.
So
That's really cool.
We did. There was the thing at the Fan Fest. You could pay so much, and you could go down and play catch for 20 minutes. I forget what it was, but whatever it was worth it. So
Yeah.
you got to go down the real field, play catch and stuff. Super fun. So I just love baseball. I love it all. Just
So we've been going for about an hour. I know you said you wanted to take a trip around your room there.
Yeah.
You want to take a trip around your room?
Yeah, there's a couple things you guys got to see. Of course, you
All
saw
right.
that. Of course, that's Ryan and Ripken together there on the autograph, but not
Nice.
Astros related there. But yeah, the shelf, I haven't shown a lot of specifics on this kind of stuff, but yeah, there's like here's a Garrett Cole. The Verlander that I showed you goes here, but there's
Right.
there's all these balls that I've caught. This is a Berkman, it's a 2 Brent Lance Berkman helmet.
Cool.
Nice.
And
Nice.
a ball that says the same thing, but just tons of balls I've caught in batting practice and stuff like that. Just the shelf is just full of that kind of thing. So these are more game used balls. These all have the tags of who pitched what and what did what. Just just memorabilia from everything. Alan Ashby, I played golf with him. This is an autograph hat.
That's awesome.
Autograph Yogi Berra when he was with us in '80s. That's another thing special about '86. He was a coach with us.
Yep.
All these here are baseballs I caught in batting practice at the World Series. Of course, bobbleheads, all that kind of stuff. But
yep.
All these balls I caught in the World Series. Just, rings. These are bronze busts they gave away at some point. That's Bagwell Biggio. They had interlocking bobbleheads with them giving high fives.
That's cool.
Very cool.
So, plaques, stuff like that. So super cool. A couple other things you got to see before we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this is cool. I'll show you this. So this here, it's going to be hard to see with that glare, I guess, but we'll light it up in a second. This was hanging in the stadium in 2017 World Series year. So I made this frame and I made a box. So what I did is I put LEDs in here. So
That's awesome.
So you can see it like it would have been in the store, wherever it was hanging,
That's really cool.
So it's all lit up. So I made it where it opens up, it's just kind of a one of one unique kind of thing. But
yeah, that's awesome.
Obviously Astros are related. But this here, I got to show you a couple things here. So this is something I made when I went to the 3,000 hit games for Biggio. And I got to kind of tell a quick story because I had tickets for the next night. He needed 3 hits. Still. I had tickets for the next night because I figured he'd get 1 or 2 hits. And then I go to the next one, he would get those. My friend calls me up and says his friend that had tickets can't go. And so he said, "You want to come?" I said, "He needs 3 hits. He's not going to do it,
Right.
But I'm like, "Yeah, man, free ticket to the Astros, of course." And it was my friend. I'm going to go hang out. This is going to be great. So we went. He got 5 hits. So he only had 5 hits. He only had 5 hits one time in his whole 20-year career until this. And then he got 5 hits that night. He only needed 3. When we walked into the stadium, we were walking in. It was already started in the first inning. He grounded out. So he's 0 for 1. So we're like, oh, he's 0 for 1. He's not going to get 3 hits after that,
Right.
And then he got 5 in a row.
Wow.
But yeah, this is what I made. This thing is insane. So this here, I took pictures of everything. I have a picture of the 29.98 pitch coming in. 29.99, 29.99. You can see the ball for 3,000 right there.
That is awesome.
3,000. Here's me with the sign in the background. You can see there. So
that is unbelievable.
When it said 3,000 hits. So I made this thing has like 20 something openings. Just the craziest thing I ever made. There's Bagwell and Biggio when he came out to congratulate him. All these are pictures I took. There's the ticket, the box score, the newspaper. So it's this giant thing.
All right, I'll take it back. That is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. That's the most insane thing I will ever make.
You said you used to frame artwork.
Yeah, so that was one of the most insane things. This is the other most insane thing when the ballpark opened. So I cut this out, which is insane. but this was the cover of the season tickets because my boss had them. These were pictures I took. This was the first game ever in the exhibition, and this is the first regular season game.
Wow.
So I have both. So I have I have untorn tickets of both of those games.
That is
Matted
so
in there.
That
And then
is a
programs from both games, pictures I took from both games. So that thing there, other than what I just showed you, is the craziest thing. And we have one more thing before we close. I've never shown this because it's in another part of the house because it's 8 feet tall. So
I had no idea what kind of show we were in for here. This is awesome.
I know. Hey man, we got it going on. But this here is a banner from 2017. So the year of George Springer.
Wow. That is huge.
So I'm 6'6". This thing's giant.
Wow.
But yeah, George Springer. This was hanging a banner. It's a vinyl banner hanging in the stadium. And
That's unreal.
So cool.
that's the only spot I could put it is in the stairwell of this like loft we have here. So
That's awesome.
it cannot go with my other stuff, unfortunately. But yeah, that's it, guys. That is the exploration of my history with the Astros.
That is really cool.
So it's the first I've ever showed that stuff for you guys.
Well,
yeah, that's
thanks.
awesome. Well, that's definitely going deep. That is definitely going deep. That's kind of like what we were looking to do. So,
Heck yeah!
Right. Like I said, I had no idea that you had that much stuff. That is so cool that you're able to share all that.
I really appreciate it. Figured we got to do it big if you got your first episode here. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Well, it's good seeing you, Brent. I'm really glad you came on. This was a lot of fun. This is exactly kind of what we were hoping for, right, Rusty? Like this is kind of what we had envisioned a little bit.
Yeah,
right.
No one can say I'm not a real fan. That's one thing.
Absolutely, you have
an
so
honor.
much good stuff.
I appreciate that, Rusty, and it's good to be able to get on with you and talk. And never been able to do that before. And of course, Jay, I've known Jay a little longer, but this was a blast.
Well, yeah, this was I enjoyed this a lot. I'm really, like I said, happy that you were able to come on and show us like just super cool stuff. I mean, and those last few items, that's stuff you won't find in the store anywhere. I mean, stuff that you made,
right?
Like that's awesome. That is just so cool.
One of a kind pieces.
Yeah.
That stuff geeks me out more than anything. Is the one of a kind stuff that you just can't go get. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed first episode of Going Deep with the Houston Astros this time. We do have another one scheduled or planned anyway, coming up soon. And that will be to be announced, I think. But today is Tuesday. We'll probably drop this on Sunday. And I really hope everybody enjoys. Again, Brent, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us. So
real quick, shout out to Scott Reindeer Studios.
There you go.
Go buy that shirt.
I have that same one. I didn't wear it. I came very unprepared today. I did not change.
Got all three stadiums. I can't beat it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But no, thank you guys. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you too, Bland. Take care. Good night.
Take care, guys.
Appreciate it, guys.